whatever you need. My name is Michelle Ponce, and I'm the Executive Director of Career and Professional Development here at CGU. Really quickly, a little bit about me. I've been here just shy of 5 years. And in 2026, I entered my 34th year in the industry. My path has been fairly linear, which is unusual. I've always been in career services, and I've always lived in Long Beach, and I've always mostly worked at universities, except for a little bit of time in Long Beach Unified School District. Absolutely love what I do. And I am super grateful to be able to work with students and alumni like you, because you're much smarter than I am and extremely talented. So, but one thing I do love and I'm very passionate about is interviewing. And I find it to be a moment for me to share and articulate my accomplishments, be proud of what I've done, and not forget about all the hard work that I went through. And so I'm going to teach you how to have that conversation today with my colleagues, Deborah, and I will introduce her now.
I'm trying to get this there. All right. Hey everyone, my name is Deborah Nathpak, and I'm an associate director here in career and professional development. I've been here about 3.5 years now. And prior to this, I was still in higher education, but on the admissions side. So I worked with international students for about 12 years. The last 3 of those years, I worked with graduate only and also domestic students. And then I had a whole other career before that in finance and administration. So unlike Michelle, my path has not been linear. I've had many career shifts, some adjacent, some completely different. And so I think nowadays that can be more normal in a sense. People are constantly shifting, and our world is shifting constantly. And what, looking at AI and how it's affecting job markets and affecting what we do and how we do it. And so we are in a very shifting, not just economy, but shifting world. And so being able to adapt to it is a key. And I think the thing that I love the most is just really helping students and our alumni be able to meet your goals and helping you understand where you want to go. What do you need to do to get there? Like, you want to be here or you're here. How can we strategize with you and help you and resource you? And so that's something I know Michelle always says, I wake up every day and I'm just blessed to come in and help students.
Super excited.
And it's a wonderful thing to have this type of work. It's very rewarding.
Hi everybody, my name is Ro Lee. I believe I met some of you in different stages. I'm really excited about presenting today's workshop because I would say about right now, a good 25% of the students I'm currently seeing are in the interview stages, right? The other percentages are either they just came in, document reviews, and eventually we want to do this so that we can get to the offer select with you guys as well, right? For my background, so I'm originally from New York. I have a background with my JD. I went to law school, did some law. While I was looking over my resume, because somebody asked to see my resume, I realized there was other stuff on there that I haven't brought up in a long time. I did work for compliance for a real estate company. I did some tech work for a company that did import-export with tech, and I did education. My heart is in education. I do think that that's where I can make the most impact. And that's my personal mission, to help students make sure that they get to accomplish their pathways. So I'm excited to work here and work with you as well. And I think today's workshop is very relevant to what you want to do. It's very practical. So that's one thing that I always want to figure out what your next step is. What is the next, step in your journey? So this is going to be definitely a step there.
And then I do want to introduce Fabiana, because she does work in our office. Yes. She's right there, the second one on the bottom. She's one of our peer career consultants. Do you want to say?
Hi, everyone. I work as a peer consultant, as a professional coach and PhD student here at CGU, and I love my job as a coach and the students helping to get where you want to go.
She's also from Italy, and I wish I was in Italy right now because I'm obsessed with Olympics. And not that I don't love you all, but I'm really obsessed. Okay, so we are just going to see oh, there we go. Okay, so the way that we like to present is really informally. I do want you to ask questions along the way. Please do not hold your questions I'm that type of person. I want to have the answer now. I live in a very instant gratification world. But basically, we want you to walk into an interview and understand the mindset of it, the strategy over the performance of it, right? I always like to say an interview is just a conversation between two or more people that don't know each other. So, Cameron, can I use you as an example? So we went to a function, Cameron and I went to a function, I don't know, last semester sometime. And, it was fantastic. And then we just kind of hit it off and started talking outside. We didn't really know each other well enough, but it was nice to be able to have that conversation and there was no pressure behind it. And so I want you to walk into an interview not thinking about the pressure of, oh my gosh, I want them to hire me. You may not want to be with them. And so that's the way I need you to go in. And I need you to also go into an interview understanding that you're the one with the talent offering it to them. They're not offering the talent to you. Okay, they may be a little bit here and there, but really just the mindset. It's all about the strategy over performance. So, oops, there is, let me see if I can move that thing because I'm not gonna be able to see there. Okay, so strategic thinking, like how you approach problems. They want, when, the way that I think about this, like when you apply to CGU, everybody kind of can look the same in the sense of grades, right? But really, when it comes down to the accomplishments and what you've done is really what they want to know. Just like any other employer, they want to know how you've, you can come in.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So anyways, so really thinking about how to approach problems, what can you do for them? And how can they support you? And then also applied skills, like how you use what you know. Everybody in this room has an enormous amount of talent. And I just want to make sure that they understand when you're in that process, how you've utilized those skills, what you've done. Sometimes we're hesitant, like, oh, are we bragging too much? Should I share that? Should I not share that? You need to share it. Right? So you just need to share it. You need to be upfront and say, I did this. And we're going to kind of get into a little bit more about I versus we, like the team. It's all the reflections got to be back on you at that moment. And then decision making, how you choose among options. Like, what am I going to share? But what did I do to get from the solution? So it's solution driven. What did I do to get from point A to point B? And then responsibility, totally understanding that most of the markets right now, you're walking into different environments that you have to show an impact, ownership. Is it ambiguous? Just anything in between. So we want you to understand the mindset before walking into an interview. I'm going to pass it on to my team right now, but I just want to take a pause. Has anyone recently interviewed, whether it be online or in person?
Oh, you did it.
Oh, okay. How was that experience for you?
It was okay. I did an online interview through iReview, and it was for an internship at ASML down in San Diego. Like 3 video questions, and then everything else was kind of just like a logistical text box. Pretty straightforward. I feel like it's so easy to get overwhelmed with how many questions they could ask you to where you kind of forget that you can answer basic questions. So, yeah, and I didn't use up all the time they gave me because I don't think anyone would want to listen to a 5-minute response. So, it's okay.
Yeah, the world is changing where you're actually not talking to someone. It's the screening process. I don't really prefer that. I actually don't like interviewing. I find interviewing to be ineffective, to be honest. You know, you're interviewing someone and talking to them for half an hour and you're going to hire them full-time permanent. You don't know anything about them. So one of the things that I did when Ro and I were connecting the first time, we went through a series of interviews, but then the last interview was
At a bagel shop.
we went to a bagel shop. Yeah, we walked to the village. We went, hi. We went to the bagel shop. I was curious what he was gonna order. I just wanted to get to know him. Like, what do you do on hobbies and things? He ordered the Reuben or something, right? Like he ordered this bagel with a whole bunch of like seeds on it. And I thought if he could do that in our interview, he's in. Like because I would have been so worried about having things in my teeth. And and I think the thing is, again, I just wanted to get to know him. That's how I really learned. I really learned about him in that sense. But we are turning to a stage right now where they are video interviews. And one thing I've learned over time is as soon as you open it, they are recording. They may not share it with you, but they're recording. So, yeah, go ahead.
Just briefly, I was in a recorded Zoom interview with a bot. They were trying out new AI technology and they emailed it to me afterwards, including their debrief,
Oh,
which was actually very nice, thankfully, but I forwarded to them. I was like, this was supposed to be internal. They were like,
Thank you for letting us mess up with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was helpful because the ways I perceived I might not get it, they confirmed, and I watched them talk about it, but.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Go next.
Yeah, we're gonna go the next one. Okay.
I think Michelle covered.
Quick
Oh, was
question.
there-
There's a question from David in the audience.
Okay. Hi, David.
I wanted to ask if by the time you get to the actual face-to-face, are they on the level of chemistry? Is this person going to work relationally?
Yeah, so my thought is employers are bringing you in at that level of chemistry, right? So they're not going to bring you in if they don't feel like you meet the criteria for the position. And it's always about chemistry. So the way I think about it is there's a whole bunch of dogs in the room, like they're puppies, and there's puppies that are fighting and puppies that are getting along, and we have to get along as a team. So if we can't get along as a team, then it's not going to work out. And you can train people certain things, but you can't train them in areas of getting along with others if that's just not their style. So the chemistry part is key, and that's what happened with Rome. I had other candidates, but who could I know that I can bounce ideas off of and be just be in a open, authentic, collaborative space? I don't want to play games. Well, my generation doesn't want to play games. I just want to go to work. I want to do my thing. I want to have fun. You know what I mean? And I want to go home. So I think that when you think about it, the chemistry has to fit. But most importantly, David, and for all of you, you have to want to be there. You're the one that threw the ball into the game. You're the one that has to accept it. Do not accept a position because, oh, okay, I got a job, I had an offer. You have to enjoy it. If you don't, you're going to end up in a space where you're just like, this sucks.
I just want to respond to David. So thank you for that question, David. So there's 2 points. So number one, I do want to piggyback off what Michelle said. There is a team fit aspect, but usually there's a hierarchy when you're interviewing. You have a general interview with like a recruiter or maybe a general person that's looking for you. Then you go on to your supervisor, and then you go on to your supervisor sometimes, right? So there is a hierarchy. Each time you're making an impression to see if you're a team fit or that person will be able to work with you. That's one point. The second point is, and Michelle conveniently left this part off, but during the interview process, I think I interviewed in 2 or 3 rounds, but the second round was with her student staff,
Oh, yeah.
right? And that was really key for me. I actually like that because I was like, these are the people I'll be working with, engaging with as well. So there was definitely a team aspect to it to see. And then I'm sure you took, hey, what do you guys think of that candidate? Right. So I think you do have to do an impression, but you have to realize that each round of an interview has different purposes. Right. So you did the first round, that was just see if you got the skills.
Yeah.
Right? The second and third round, it becomes more of a, you have the skills to, interact with us. Now, can you actually work with us? Do we like you? Do we like to work with you as well?
Also, if you are in a space that you can be an interviewer, I highly encourage you to talk to your supervisor, talk to someone, because the skills that you learn on the flip side is just tremendous. So my daughter's an intern and I'm like, they're interviewing in her department right now. And I'm like, talk to your supervisor. I want you to be on the panel. Like, because you just learn differently. It's amazing what you can learn. So go ahead, Deborah.
Yeah. Well, I think we've talked a lot about these, and I know we have a short amount of time, but just one thing that I think is important is, as Michelle had mentioned in the beginning, just the ambiguity of life and work. And there's many times that you're given a project, things might happen and change. Can you pivot quickly? Can you work? How do you work when things are more ambiguous in order to get the job done? And that communication piece. I know with NACE, they list what are the top skills employers want. And it's usually the communication, analytical thinking, collaboration. It's not what you would think. You would think, oh, they want those technical skills. But they talk about we need people that can work well with others. We need people that can think critically and that can pivot and learn from the challenges they face or bumps in the road. And so just remembering that as you are sharing your stories, that you are sharing those types of skills. You're indicating to them, oh, when I did this, I collaborated with the team. We accomplished this. We met this challenge. This is what the decision I made and the action I took. And so you're always wanting to think, how can I show my value in the skills I have to this employer and how it fits in the job that I'm interviewing for?
There is also one aspect to prepare for. We're talking about the interview, so you guys are already thinking, all right, I have the employer in front of me, Q&A, right? A lot of impression happens before the actual interview. Let's say we're waiting for the Zoom and there's 3 or 4 people and they're waiting to log on. What happens when you're on screen? Right? You have one person of the team that's supposed to interview there and you're there. You guys don't just watch each other. There's a little interaction, a little dialogue, the small talk that a lot of people are like, ugh, right? A lot of impression on I like this person comes in the small talk. Okay, so we have to realize small talk is part of it. How you introduce yourself. You know, when they have mundane questions like, what's a normal question that people ask each other that don't know each other well? Tell me about yourself, right? Or even before that, the weather is horrible today.
Californians love to talk
Yeah,
about weather.
right? So,
Hi,
like,
David.
Or traffic.
David's in Missouri, it's cold.
That or traffic.
these little
Right, yeah.
things, how you tell that story of this non-important, factoid is really important. That also conveys how you speak, how you communicate. What level of communication do you have? What's the vocabulary you're using? What's the connotation of these words? All these things come apart into small talk, right? So I think it's really important that you have to realize as soon as that camera's on, you're on, right? Like Michelle said, it's being recorded. The small talk is also being recorded, right? Usually, not always. But I want you to know that impression can always happen, right? One person comes on, the second person comes on. Now you have to do small talk with that other person until the director comes on or something. You have to wait. All that impression can be very impactful. And you don't want to start on a bad foot, because if you start on a bad foot, then you have to prove yourself in the interview with these questions. But if you start on a good foot, you're just maintaining that high during that, during that rest of the interview.
One thing I do too is as soon as I turn my Zoom on and I know the other person's coming on, I just start smiling. Because I want that first impression, so they know. I'm not like this. I'm always like, I just put the smile on because I don't know what they're gonna see first, right? The other thing that Ro had mentioned too, when the second person comes through, acknowledge them. Just like, oh, it's so nice to see you. How are you doing? Deborah. So acknowledge them because they want to know, like, are you going to be able to connect with them? It's all about, like David was saying, is it the chemistry side of it? Okay. Go ahead, Ro.
Okay, so for graduate level, of course, everybody here, you're at graduate level. You guys are at different life stages than college students, right? So you have to realize, well, then they expect more out of you. You have to realize also the job description. Are they looking for college and masters, or are they looking for only masters as well? Because you have to also play that fine game of, I am up to the level, but I'm also not underqualified or I'm not overqualified. Some of you have seen those type of situations before. So you have to make sure you have the research position. Another thing is research fluency. This is what you guys are good at, right? All the Q's, right? Qualitative, quantitative. You have to show your expertise in this. If you just started, you can say, well, these are the classes I'm taking that are relevant. If you've been at the school a couple times, I say a semester, or if you're a PhD student and you're quite advanced, you have to show off that return on investment that you made in that education through your words, through your actions. This is not a time to recite your resume. This is time to pick something in there and then develop it and tell that story. This is the time. So I always say you should have about 4 or 5 experiences that you like. You can alter the purpose of those experiences, but you want to have 4 or 5 in your pocket that you're comfortable talking about. Question, yes.
Is it okay to ask for questions ahead of the interview? Is that bad?
You mean, are you sending it like through email or?
Just just to have the questions.
Oh, you should definitely have the questions. You can alter the questions, but it's good to have 2 or 3 questions that you're prepared to ask.
No, she's asking the question she's gonna be asked. You won't, they won't give them to you. They'll share them with you if they
Oh,
want
I
to.
see, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great, but you know what? The thing is this, if we sit down, we can train you to answer any question. Once we get into the STAR method, I always use is the sky blue, you know, and I can answer that in a heartbeat. There is no reason you can't answer a question. And one thing I always keep in mind, I was gonna mention, don't fall into the imposter syndrome. We all live in it. Don't do it. You know what you've accomplished here at CGU, you know what you've accomplished in the past. And secondly, if the position sounds so ideal, you are overqualified for it. Okay, so keep that in mind. If it sounds perfect, you're like, oh, this is great. That means you're overqualified. You've got to really challenge yourself to continue to grow. But they won't give you normally they won't give you the questions ahead of time. They may if it's a bot. Sometimes they do if it's a bot, but it's okay. You're not supposed to answer the question perfectly. You're supposed to answer it the way that you feel that you can contribute to the team. And we'll get into that.
I think for that question though, also, if you're on a technical side, like if you're applying for a position where you need to use a program, you may know that they're gonna test you in round 2, right? And usually those tests are standard because they have to compare everybody. You can go online or talk to your friends,
Yeah.
AI, and they can probably predict what type of questions will be asked, but behavioral questions are a little bit different. And as Michelle's
Yeah.
saying, this is where you practice with us, so you can pivot if you have a
Yeah.
question that you're not sure how to answer. Well, then I know how to answer these other questions with relevant. I'll apply that. It's a good question though. We can go to the next one.
Yeah. So then we'll look at some of the questions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why they're tapping into behavioral questions, I'm gonna skip to that one right now, is they just really want to know about you. They want to know about how you're gonna be able to handle situations. And it doesn't have to be negative. It can be positive too. I'm always gonna lean towards positivity. You know, share a time that you needed supervisor support. They weren't there. How did you handle the situation? What did you do? What was the outcome? So these are things you can prepare. That one scenario you can answer with anything. So it doesn't matter what the scenario that they ask you, you know, in your mindset that you can answer anything. What I like to share is a lot of times when you're prepping for an interview, I have my clients record it because if you type it, we write much differently than we speak. So I have them record it on their phone, like they respond to the question. Then I have them take that content, I have them type it, look at the way that it flowed or didn't flow, and I have them re-talk it through. The worst thing you can do is not do the research on the company and not prepare for the interview. When my clients start getting the car and they're like, okay, it's a half an hour away, I'm gonna start preparing. You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
So you would never go to your first class and then go to the last class and not go to ones in between. Don't do that to yourself with the interview. If you really want to be there and you feel like this is a good fit for me, I need you to practice and prepare. But we can go through some of these and yeah.
I was just gonna share that, oftentimes they'll ask you a question, tell us about a time you failed, or tell us about a time you didn't meet a deadline. And one of the things that going back to that positivity, one of the things that you can talk about at the end is what I learned from it. So you can talk about, the situation, the task, what action you took. Unfortunately, we didn't make the deadline. However, what I learned from that is that we needed to meet weekly instead of bi-weekly, or we needed to meet 2 times a week. And then the next project we did make on time. And so you're showing them that you learn from those opportunities to learn, and that you can pivot, because every single one of us has had a time where things didn't go as planned. Things didn't go as you wanted them to go. And so how do we react to that? And what do we learn from that? And do we change our behavior the next time so that we don't get those same missed results? So that's what they're really looking for. And then another thing is you may be asked a question you don't have an experience when they say, tell us about a time when, or an experience you had of this. You may not have that. And so you can be honest and say, oh, well, I haven't faced that situation. However, if I did, this is what I would do. And you walk them through your thought process what actions would you take and what would the end result be, hopefully. And so that at least gives them an idea of that thought process and how you would approach that type of situation.
That part's key, that second part that she was mentioning. Also, you can bring humor into it. And this is the part that I want you to notice. If you bring humor into it and they don't laugh back, it's not the place for you. Okay, so you could say, oh, I've never failed. You know, and it just kind of like, just kidding, you know, and then you can say, okay, so let me share with you an example. So bringing humor so they can see your personality. Again, make it a conversation and don't feel like you're sitting there and you're under the, like the light and they're, you know, they're completely analyzing you. Just make it a conversation. It feels totally different. Some of you have had an interview and didn't even know you had an interview. You know, when you're like talking to someone and they're like, oh, wow, you would be such a great fit for this. You felt so relaxed because you did not know you were interviewing. That's exactly how I want you to handle it, right? I want you to think about conversations like that in the past. But Deborah, like Deborah was saying, you never say, oh, I haven't, or I didn't. Have you ever supervised someone? You know what? Let me share with you how I've supervised someone. Even if you've never supervised someone, you might have supervised a project and those people you were kind of giving directive. You might have been in a group project and you were like, you know, the person who oversaw everything. Never say, I haven't. You just say, let me share with you. So it's just about changing that wording. Okay. We can work with you individually to go through these questions. We just wanted to kind of share with you some common ones. Keep in mind, this slide deck will be available on the website. And if you were attending today, we will send it to you. And we're also recording.
Yeah, so we're gonna go over how to answer questions. So I can give you all the questions you want, right? But then the real skill is how you're gonna answer and respond in a way that's impactful, right? So we have this, you know, the STAR method, STAR, and we'll go over what each one means. But I really want you to I'm gonna preface something. I want you to focus on the R. Most people, they remember STAR and they do the STA, and we'll describe what they are. But the R is where a lot of people either through nerves or they forget what the accomplishment was and forget to convey their accomplishment. Okay, so situation, task, action, result. The first one, situation, basically describe the situation, right? So they said, tell them about a time you failed, right? Or tell me what your weakness is, right? You're going to describe the situation. You want to see if the situation also matches the industry, right? If you're talking about a situation that's personal, but it doesn't really match the job that you're going for, a software engineer or a professor at a school, it's examples that are closer that they can relate to. Because you want people in the, you know, in the audience to nod and go, oh yeah, I know what that's about. I know I've been through that as well. Once you get them on your side and you give a positive response, they can relate to you, right? They can empathize with you. You want them on your side. So you have to describe a situation, but you have to describe it in a way that's appropriate to the industry that you're applying to.
Before we go to the next one, I do want to there's also the CAR method, same thing, right? And if you can think of it to make it easier for you, you learned this in fourth grade, introduction, body, conclusion. That's the way, we all know how to do that, right? So the situation is the introduction, right? And it's the introduction and it's the beginning of the body, right? So the introduction part is you reiterating the question because in your mind, it's spinning super quick and you're like, oh my God, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna say? You're like, that's a wonderful question. I think I have to think about that one for a moment. Do you mind repeating it? It's okay to say that, or wow, tell me about myself. I have so much to share. All you're doing is just delaying, repeating, so you remember, right? Sometimes they'll do 2 or 3 part questions. I hate that. Just say, I'm gonna focus on number 1. I'll get to 2 and 3 in a second. I might have you repeat it. But that's the reiteration part. Then you go into the body part of it and you start to talk about, and that's when we're going to get into the next ones. So now you're laying the groundwork for the situation.
All right, so the task is really, what was that challenge or what were you tasked with? What was the assignment given to you? And for some of you, we've talked about if you don't have direct experience professionally or even in a volunteer role, you can use your academic experience. So the projects you've worked on for classes, those group projects, individual assignments. So think about that. You want to be able to articulate how what you're learning in the classroom applies and how you've applied it. So the task, you know, I was given a group assignment. I was the lead of our group and we decided that this was how we were gonna divvy up the tasks and we were gonna meet every week. So you're giving out kind of that task and then that action that you started going towards.
One thing to keep in mind too, if you felt like, okay, they're gonna think, oh, it's just school, so it's not really a project, then don't talk about school, talk about the project. So I was in, a group with my peers, colleagues, whatever you wanna call them. You all are colleagues with each other. You're in class together. And I had this project that we were doing and I took the lead on this area, totally fine. You never have to mention the fact that it was at CGU or wherever. You just need to talk about the project. Because some employers, they're biased. It's gonna be like, oh, it's just a group project. It must not be that big of a deal. No, it is. Group projects basically suck. I mean, some people do the work, some people don't do the work. You all know who you are, right? And but they wanna know, are you gonna be able to work in a team? The ultimate goal is, can you go from A to B to C to D to F, whatever, and can you work in a team? And so talk about that project, but you don't necessarily have to say, in my class, no, just flip that. You're all the colleagues, clients, peers, whatever you want to call it.
And I think, one thing that you have to delve into the mind of the interviewer and think, what are they trying to get at? What do they really want to know when they ask me these questions? And so with interview, they're really asking, what is your behavior? How do you think? How do you approach things? Do you get things done? And so always keep that in the back of your mind and make sure that you're answering those questions, the spoken question and those unspoken questions. And the STAR method is a way of organizing your thoughts so that the interviewers can follow you in your story. You're telling them a story and you want them to be able to follow you in that story. And so sometimes you can even say, the situation was this, I was tasked with this, the action that I took, and as a result of, so you're giving them keywords to follow you in your story. And the action, as Rose said, I think the action and the results is what you should spend the most time on.
That's the body.
So that's the meat of the question. They want to know, what was your process? What were you thinking? And what was the result? What was your accomplishment?
Before you change it, do you see that part at the bottom where it says, try to avoid, I worked really hard. We all work really hard. Really be descriptive as to what you did. From infancy through the entire life cycle, so I went from infancy to execution of this project, and let me share with you in between. And also you try to use I statements. We all work in groups, all of us, like we work as a team all the time, but I want always the focus to be on you. And that's why they're there, right? I know you're gonna work in a team and it's gonna be a we eventually, but in that moment, I need you to own it. Because that's gonna give you the confidence and the power. They're gonna understand that you're the one that participated. We don't do this isolated, we do it as a team. But during that moment on your resume and in interviewing, I need it to be about you, not about them. Assisted blank, 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 blank. No, this has nothing to do about them. It's about you. So keep that in mind when you think about it. You can tell I'm a little passionate. I love interviewing.
So the result, this is the part I actually work a lot with students on. Again, I told you guys to make sure that, you focus on the R. And sometimes I even recommend that you say it in the beginning, give the conclusion, then say how you reach that conclusion with the STA. Either way, whether you put the conclusion in the front or you put it at the back. Now, an interview is it's a difficult process, even though, we're preaching to you guys, oh, take it easy, be yourselves. It's quite nerve-wracking, right? So you want to make sure in a short amount of time, you have about 1.5 to 2 minutes to respond to an answer. You want to make sure they got my point first, and then you could describe a little bit more, right? So example, what was a challenge that you had before? Well, a challenge I had before was this that I overcame because I did this. Now let me explain to you that process, and then you can go through it. So I just want to make sure that you guys remember that the result is really important because that's how they're measuring you, right? Oh, you did something and then you overcame your fear of public speaking. Great, that's subjective. I don't know if you overcame that, but you have percentages. oh, I don't have percentages, but I've actually given speeches at 3 other conferences since then, or something like that. You have to show something something I can measure. Okay, and also later on resumes, we always preach that as well, right? Make sure you have metrics on your resume as well to showcase some of the accomplishments, right? You say, I'm good at Excel, great. Now show me how you're good at Excel. Oh, I've manipulated these things. I've used this program with Excel and Power BI to present with whatever you want to say. You have to make sure that's result oriented. That's really, really important. Any questions on that point?
Or online?
Yes.
I would really want to strike two targets for this. One is an experience that I learned, and the second part is how do I put it in the best way possible as a result. So I'll take a real experience of the hackathon that we recently had. I wanted 300 participants, but the school toned it down, saying we stopped registrations at 120, even though we were getting more. And I was really gutted until the day of the hackathon, thinking that, oh, why are we not doing it in a big scale? But that day, something happened. It started raining. It started pouring down, and everything that we wanted to do outside shifted inside. So that's a lesson that I learned. Sometimes things happen for a reason. You should be happy about it. You should be prepared with it. But I was internally still gutted about the fact that the result that I wanted was 300 participants, but it was only 120. It went really well, and only 80 people turned out because of the rain. But that's another thing. How do we put this situation into the result the best way possible?
Well, what happened with the hackathon? What was the result of the hackathon?
It was really great.
What does that mean? It went really great.
There was
First of all, it was the first time.
the second.
Second time, but was that improvement over the original one?
Yeah,
How much of an improvement?
got like 40 more registration.
Okay, so you had 40 last time, you had 80 this time, so you doubled the amount of people that came.
We
Right.
had 120, right?
Right.
Cause it mass,
He wanted 120, but 80 came, right?
Yeah,
Is that right?
he-
130 registrations.
he
80 came.
wanted 300, right?
And you want 300.
40.
So this shows me two things. You expanded a program, right? And I would like to see how you manage that program, to show off your skills. But then also you still had a vision for 300. So it's not like I'm just happy with double. Actually, my vision was much larger for this, right? So you still have maybe how you can accomplish that in the future, right? So that could be something that you can convey to the employer. I want to show up this event that I kind of helped run. And I actually doubled it from the inaugural one to the second one, but my vision is still to get 300. And this is how I want to accomplish that. And then, how are you going to accomplish that? I'm talking with the dean, I'm talking with stakeholders and partners as well to figure out what are the best steps in order to do that, right? So there's ways that you can still, even though you didn't accomplish what you wanted, this is showing me initiative. This is showing me in a good way, the greed to do well, right? So, but we want to convey this, right? So I think you have the right attitude that I want to show this off, but also it still fell below my personal standard, but I don't want to use the words with negative connotation, like it didn't fulfill or it didn't meet. But you say you have aspirations to make this into a 300-person event. You already doubled it. Now I want to double it again. Something like that. You guys have any opinion?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So the way in your mind, you're a little upset, right? But I would flip it, start with positivity, exactly what Rose said. I'm super excited for next year because it started as a pilot. This was our second year. We doubled it. And next year I want it to grow. Just need to make sure that we have all the space now for it because this is so awesome, right? So I understand what you're saying. But at the same time, sometimes we're just learning. You can say leadership wanted to keep it a little bit small the first couple of years, and now we're super excited to grow it. I want to see 300 people there. It's all about approach. It's that last thing. Lead with positivity. One thing I do want to mention about the results before we move on. Well, actually, we will move on. I want to show you something really quick. That last part at the bottom, I think it's this one. Okay, so this is the end of the conversation. We not only met but exceeded our sales targets by 15% for the season, and customer satisfaction ratings improved by 10%. This is how people literally end their response, and it's so awkward because we're all just sitting here now. And they'll be like this, and customer satisfaction ratings improved by 10%. And then the person on the other side's like, is she done? Is she not done? The phone calls are the worst. Zoom is not good. Even in person, it's awkward. I'm like staring at you. You need to end it. Did that answer your question? Would you like me to elaborate? I would love to share another example. I don't care how you end it. You need to end it. It doesn't need to be the same each time. Don't make it awkward, right? Don't just stop talking either. 10%. So weird, right? We don't end conversation. We say bye on the phone. Okay? Think of it that way. You don't just like when you meet with us on Zoom, okay, Michelle, have a great day. Okay, you too. Okay, yeah, David, I know it's 15 in Missouri. It's 80 outside. Okay, bye. Right? You need to end the conversation. So end it normally. Don't trickle off. Please don't trickle off, especially when you're on Zoom. Okay? Because even if it's in a panel, they need to know, okay, I'm going to go to the next question. So results are very important, but don't leave them hanging.
Let's go. Yeah, I think we did mention preparation and doing that research. And so the more that you prepare and practice, the better you're gonna feel and the more confident you're gonna feel. And I think that helps where we don't just abruptly end our answer because we practice it and we know what we want to say. Even though it'll be a little different each time that we say it, we still have an idea of how we want to answer the question and the results that we are going to talk about. So making sure that you set time aside to really prepare. And again, our office is here to help you. We can do mock interviews with you. We can have you practice with us. We can give you feedback. So please use our office as that resource.
And while we move to the next slide, what prepare also means besides practice the questions is know your audience, right? Know the place that you're applying to, know the job description well. It drives me crazy when students on campus apply for our student worker jobs. And the first question they ask is, so what is this about? I'm like, what did you just apply to? You know, so you have to make sure you understand what you're applying to, what is on your resume, right? But also how you're gonna answer that, what's the company mission, right? What you expect it to do. And I love to see if I can find out who the interviewers are. So if you're a recruiter and they set up all right, Monday at 4 o'clock is your interview, great. Can you also tell me who I'll be interviewing with, or at least the positions of the people? That helps you because now you can do some homework, right? You can look on LinkedIn, you can stalk a little bit, but you want to find out what that person's about, what school they went to, what was their progression in their career, right? Oh, I see that you had the position that I'm interviewing for like 5 years ago. What were some of the common problems then? I would like to know, you know, so you have some insight into the company, and also people respect and really value the fact that you researched the company. You came prepared. You know, you have all that's a bad phrase. I would say you have all the bullets in your gun. That's not a good thing anymore. You have, you know, you're ready to go, basically, right? So that's the part that really impresses them. When I have people that I've interviewed, they're ready, they understand the role. I ask, for example, if they're ready to give it. Oh, you've also done some things before. I'm like, oh, wow, you know where I'm from too. So that actually leaves a really good impression. Because it shows you prepared for that, and the interview, you'll prepare for the work as well.
You can also read articles that they've written. I read your article on blank, 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 and I love this part of it. They're like, wow, it's all about how you make people feel. It is always about how you make people feel. So try to find out more about them.
So one of the things we wanted to talk about is just some of these strategies. Our students here, students and alum, you're at very many different times of life. You're in different career stages, you're in different life stages. And so here are some strategies just based on that. Some of you are at that early career interview focus. So again, what are the things that you can talk about? You can bring in those academic projects, but like Michelle said, you don't necessarily have to say school project. You can say, you know, a lot of times in the master's level, you're doing actual consulting work for companies. And so you talk about that. And then thinking about what experiences that you've had professionally, if you've had any, if there's been volunteer roles, have you held leadership positions in any associations you've been a part of? So trying to think through what you can put on there and think about what skills you've learned and developed in those roles and how it applies to the position you're applying to. So that's part of that research and understanding the job role. You have to understand how your experience and your skills fit in to that role. Because if you can't articulate that, they're not gonna see it and they're not gonna want to hire you. So mid-level, mid-career strategy, looking at framing the graduate experience, your graduate education, enhancing your leadership and technical skills. It's not always a career reset. I mean, there's a lot of transferable skills that you learn doing your master's and PhD. You have that critical thinking, the analytical skills, the research skills, the communication skills. These are the things that those employers are looking for. And so you can frame that academic portion in those transferable skills. What are you learning in addition to the actual knowledge and expertise in your field? But you're also learning all of these transferable skills or enhancing them. You wanna?
No.
No, okay.
I just want to make sure, and make sure you can walk up and get pizza too. We don't mind at all.
Yeah. I know we have a little bit of
Yeah.
time, but some of you are in a career pivot. So again, talking about those transferable skills. You don't want to throw out everything that you've done. So in my past careers in finance and administration, I use a lot of those skills now. I use all of those skills now. My skills in admission, I use all of those skills now. And I use them in a little different way, but I'm still using them. So you have to be able to talk about how what you've done in the past is going to help you be successful in the role that you're going into or interviewing
All
for.
those skills don't live in a bubble, right? You don't bubble them out. You move them from situation to situation. So when you go and get your car taken care of and they're like, okay, it's $897. You're like, whoa, that's a little too much. I want it to be 497. Okay, great. You're negotiating. So do that in your life too. Negotiate, use those skills, understand that they move from area to area. And once you start to learn that, you're like, oh, this works here. So all of your past experiences, whether it be even in high school, I don't care, you still learned about yourself. You still did things. They don't become obsolete because you've matured 20 years.
And this is something that a lot of the students I've seen that are veterans, they sometimes have difficulty. Oh, I was a captain in a submarine for 5,000 people. How do I translate that and translate civilian translate and put it on like a resume, right? That's the part. It's a transferable skill. You showed leadership, communication. You had to set up a daily schedule. You were a leader in a group, so you have to figure out how to, I guess, easily make it understandable to other people what you did without using like military terminology in that situation. So that's something that we also will work with you on, not only on your resume, but in an interview, right? Depending on who your audience is, you have to talk the language of the people that's interviewing you. So that's something that we have to make sure we're practiced and we're cognizant of.
We're running out of time.
Yeah, we are. I do want to mention a couple things on this one. If you're going to a interview in person, try to arrive at least a half an hour early, not that you're walking in a half an hour early. Give yourself time to decompress. Give yourself time just to breathe. You're not going to keep studying. It doesn't matter at this point, but I do want you to go to the restroom. I want you to wash your hands with cold water. I know this sounds silly, but I'm totally a big fan of all this stuff. Cold water is going to calm you down a little bit. It's going to reset you. So just give yourself that time and show up 15 minutes before the interview. If you're going on Zoom, tap in at least 2 or 3 minutes before. Please update your Zoom. Please update your Zoom
Prior to
that, because I can guarantee it's gonna want to reset as soon as you want to go on. So anyways, and then the next one, just understanding nonverbal posture, eyes. Remember when I go on Zoom, and now you all are gonna look when you go on with me, I'm gonna be like this. Cause that's the first thing I want you to see is that smile, right? And so, if they cross their arms, you can do it, just match, voice loud enough, definitely on Zoom and on the phone. It's hard to hear on the phone because most of you are on cell phones. I still have a landline. Cell phones, I have a cell phone too. They don't work as well and they cut in and out. So talk louder than you are used to, and then listen authentically. If you're at home and you're on the phone, you can write stuff down to reiterate it, which is fantastic. Okay,
have your notes. One thing on Zoom, you have to be a little more animated than you would in person because it's not three-dimensional in
Yeah.
that way. And so that was really good advice I received from a friend who was in an interview where I was being interviewed, and she told me, you fell a little flat, like towards, you started with energy and then you kind of went down. And so I made a point for the follow-up interview, which I got, that I kind of sat forward and made sure that my energy level stayed up and that I was animated, that I was smiling and being interactive with them. It was exhausting, but I got the job. I'm here. So just keep that in mind.
And if you know that certain clothes make you feel more empowered and you're on the phone, wear that suit. I don't care because it makes you feel different than just sweats, right? So just put it on just for those 30 minutes. Okay, how to close the interview.
Yep.
Well, we have questions that you can definitely ask, but like Michelle said, you don't want to leave it hanging. You don't want to leave the interview hanging. You want to make sure that I answer all of your questions. You guys have any more questions? They always give you time to ask questions yourself. Have those prepared, right? I always say have 2 or 3 prepared because sometimes the one question that you prepared was already answered in the interview.
Yeah.
So now you're like, oh, I got nothing else, right? So you need that ace up your sleeve. You need 2 or 3 questions. I would say make them insightful questions. You can generalize like, what does success mean if I have this job in like 6 months or 8 months? That's great. Personalize that question to that job though.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something that you have to realize. There are basic questions. You can find a million questions that are good and insightful, but you want to personalize it to that job description. Easy way, use AI. Suggest some copy paste the job description, suggest some questions that are good to ask for those as well, right? You can use some AI to organize, right? But you want to be insightful. And then at the end, how do you end any interview? What does most people do here? Yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you very much. All right, so you thank them for their time. Also, I don't know if we're gonna get into it, but you also want to send a thank you letter.
Yeah, it's the next one. Before you go, we want to share it with you unless you have to
Okay,
go.
go ahead.
But when you do say thank you say thank you, Cameron. Again, it's how you make people feel. When I go out to eat, I always say the server's name. And that's how we get their attention. The thank you letter part, which is the next one really quick.
I just
Oh, go ahead.
want to reiterate the re-anchor your value.
Oh, yes.
Always give a little mini sales pitch at the end and kind of wrap up like, oh, thank you so much. Really enjoyed our conversation. Based on our conversation, you said that you were looking for these key qualities. I have these key qualities, as I mentioned, talking about my project or talking about that, what I was able to accomplish. I feel like I would be a great fit for this role. Would love to have further discussions with you. So you're retelling that, but in like 3 sentences, very quickly, but that's what you lead them with is, oh, okay, they understood and they listened to what we said, and this is how they would fit that role.
You're basically selling yourself again to this, right? The thank you can, again, we'll send this to you, but I always encourage people to write their thank you before the interview, and it sounds silly, but you won't have writer's block. Then when you get back from your interview, you're gonna add 2% to content that you learned during the interview. And so if it's a panel of 4, you're writing 4 different emails. So you talk it into your phone, they can't be the same. If it's 5, you're writing 1 and giving it to the chair. That's the most important thing to keep in mind. The other part of it is, don't send it on the hour. So I always kind of pick a fun time within 1 hour after the interview. If the interview ends at 1, I'm gonna send it at 2:16. So you know what I mean? I don't want them to know I have pre-written it. And I also don't want to do it on the hour 15, 30, or 45. That was the only thing. And I know some of you have to go, but I love the thank you letter. So keep in mind too, 95% of the people will not send one. And if I have 5 candidates I've interviewed and I love them all, the person that sends the thank you is the one that's gonna get it. I can tell you that because I know that they can communicate. But
And
if you
they
don't,
take the time.
and take the time, but if you don't spend time to say thank you, there's no reason they should bring you on board. Yeah, don't forget to get some pizza if you have to go.
Oh, this is an announcement for our virtual
Yes.
mock.
If
Yeah.
you have not already signed up, we do have a virtual mock interview week happening the end of this month. You apply for it through Handshake. And then there are 59 slots. I think 21 have already been taken. We have industry leaders from across different industries that have volunteered to conduct mock interviews with you. So this is a chance for you to practice in a safe space these interviewing skills we just talked about, and also to expand your network and meet new people and just gain some wisdom and insight from them, their years of experience. So we'd love to have you join if you haven't already applied.
It was, and it's on our site too, but if you email us, we'll kick it back to you.
Yeah.